For whatever reason, I just had the thought, if we are not dying from what we're dying from, what are we dying from? I think the mind really does want to hold on to life, especially if there's room and space and time to think about our mortality. And when I say room and time and space to think about our mortality, I'm really thinking about or speaking about when something comes along like a diagnosis, because otherwise we do not necessarily think about our mortality. Our mortality is almost like something we've heard of at some point, but it really doesn't apply to us. But then it applies to us. And what happens when we try to just hold on? And what angst and suffering might that create? If we know that we will all exit this world, when something comes along the way for us that brings us truly to face that reality, how do we face it? Do we turn toward it? Do we turn away from it? Are we frozen in time? Where does the mind go? And what becomes of fear? Fear, it can really do a doozy on us. Fear plus the unknown equals a lot of anxiety, and it sort of exacerbates itself. It massages in all of the things that, are we running from the diagnosis, or are we running from our thoughts around it? What do we want ease from? Because if this is how I am to leave this world, am I capable of changing that? Or is there something that's getting my attention and basically requiring that I take a seat beside it and see what conversations come? I like to talk to myself silently, quietly, give thought to what if? How might I? If this were me, what then? What does my exit from this lifetime look like? It's not always easy to think about that, because then the mind is like, oh no, the fear, right? And if a person is navigating a diagnosis and they're fighting, let's say, a cancer, renal disease, heart matters, fighting something that requires a treatment, how far do we go in the fight? And are we living while we're fighting, or are we fighting to live? It seems many people are fighting to live, and along the way they forget that right now is the time of your life and you're living. So are we living alongside the fight, or have we paused that because our lives no longer reflect who we have been, and so therefore we need to just fight to stay alive, and then at some other point we will return to ourselves? It's deep. And anyone who's navigating cancer knows that you never go back to who you were before. There's only the forward going. There's only the discovering of who you become on the other side of the fight. If there is an other side to the fight. Because not everyone has an other side. Not everyone is gifted, if it is a gift for them, remission. healing, miracles, time. What are we doing with the time now before we encounter something? Because again, if we are not dying from what we're dying from, what then are we dying from? Because we do not get to stay in this lifetime, in this form, forever. Have you thought about that? Have you thought about what your death and dying is supposed to be, air quotes, italicized, supposed to be? If it's not whatever we're faced with, what is it supposed to be? I imagine when we hold on and cling to life, the supposed to be is that our death and dying is not supposed to be. Or maybe we see ourselves at 115, we go to sleep and we do not wake up. That could be a gift. It could also be a hell for someone who's been struggling for like 20 years, right? All things exist. And the words coming out of my mouth, I'm hearing them and it sounds so easy. And it's so far from easy. And it's not about hard or easy. It's about contemplating the fullness of who we are now and the way of our going. When we know that our mortality is real. And the mind wants to fight all things, including our death. And the only way to get out of dying is to have never been born. There's a saying or quote that I'm going to chop up that's attributed to the Buddha that says, basically, there's no need to cry, or we shouldn't cry when someone dies. We should cry actually when they are born. Because we know the way of life. It has joys and sorrows, happiness and suffering, aches and pains and illness and dis-ease, and eventually death. How is it that we move through the days of our lives with our mortality somewhere, not even on the back burner, but way so far in the distance, back there somewhere or out there somewhere that it doesn't even exist? How do we go through our days like that? And how does it serve us when we are faced with, the harsh reality of life in terms of impermanence and illness and diagnoses? And we begin to think about the many things we are responsible for, or the goals we have, the children, our partners, family, that we do not want them to suffer the loss of us, that we've just begun. Think about the children who never make it to 5. Because of leukemia, or maybe a brain cancer, glioblastoma, or some rare disease. Life truly is a gift. It is not a guarantee. And I think when we forget that we're going to die, we take it for granted each moment. If we held, and not in a sad, depressed place, but if we held in mind in most moments, because it's a practice, that each moment is a gift and not a guarantee, how would that inform us? How would it inform your life? When you wake up to a new day, how would it set your life in motion? Would anything be different if you contemplated your mortality as a spiritual practice? It's something that I think about every day, but I cannot say that I contemplate my mortality daily as a spiritual practice. And yet when it enters in, I do pause and give it thought. And sometimes it makes me cry, like, oh. And other times it leaves me with awe and gratitude. And then there are other times when it makes me cry and leaves me with awe and gratitude and wonder and like curiosity. Because what was before birth? My father died in 2003, and I feel closer to him now than ever before. How is that possible? But we only have what our eyes can see, what our ears can hear, what our senses can sense, what our hands can touch. And that's for all of us who have those abilities, because you know what? Not everyone does. And so we hold on to that as if it's fixed and permanent. And we can't imagine anything else. We don't want to imagine anything else. That's too hard. That's scary. The unknown is scary. But it's like learning a new language. If we exercise, or even, building muscle, if we practice getting to know it and exercise it a little at a time, giving thought to our mortality a little at a time, would it help? Would it bring us any comfort? Would it allow us a little more spaciousness to not suffer as greatly if we encounter something that brings us face to face with our mortality? Perhaps. So I'm thinking about that. If we are not dying from what we're dying from, then what are we dying from? Because we're all dying every moment. And I don't say that cavalierly. I don't say that casually. I say that because I'm also a part of that. Like we're all in that sort of, we're all holding hands at that bonfire together. No one is exempt. No one is special. And yet we're all special. Because we've been granted this time now, knowing that there will come a time later where we will no longer be here inside of this time being granted now. And that, I want to practice being grateful and holding that close. And I want to practice not taking for granted any moment of my life. And I invite you to find the place and space within yourself where you, too, are practicing the gratitude for now, because later is not promised. And being with the truth and reality that eventually there's no more. And so we dance like no one is watching. We hug tightly a little longer. We don't sweat the small stuff. We dive in the deep end and swim. We love and laugh and lounge and take naps and cook and eat and share and engage while we can. And we use our limbs if we are able, and we do so with gratitude that we have limbs to use and that we are in fact able. We feel the breeze against our skin, the tickles. We see smiles, we see tears. We hold pain and sorrow, joy and laughter. Life is beautiful, and it's only here for a spell. May we all be reminded of that and contemplate the fullness of our being here for the spell inside of time of our life. Thank you for listening, for joining me. I don't have the answers. I just have the thoughts that I'm thinking and an opportunity to contemplate. And so thank you for contemplating these things with me. I appreciate you and your presence. And if you are suffering through something, may you be held, sustained, and carried. May you have ease and grace. And may you have someone with whom you can share and lean on, cry on. May we all have what we need in every moment that we need it. And may you come back around and join me again. I'd love that. I would.